What's up, everybody? It's your coach Jaron here with Forge, and today we're going to be going over the kettlebell clean. Now, outside of the basic kettlebell swing, I believe the kettlebell clean is one of the most important movements for you to learn and master because it's our delivery method to get the kettlebell from the ground up into the rack position up by the chest and the shoulder. This is important for movements such as the kettlebell clean into press, for learning the mechanics of the kettlebell snatch, and basically just delivering the kettlebell into that rack position so we can do other movements such as kettlebell squats, kettlebell front squats, lunges, anything where we're having to hold in that rack position. So let's learn the basics of the kettlebell clean today so you can progress through your journey with learning kettlebell training. The kettlebell swing is the foundation for the kettlebell clean. So if you haven't already gone through some time learning the kettlebell swing in both the two-hand and the single-hand versions, I highly recommend checking out the video that I created for you on how to perform a kettlebell swing properly. Once you're familiar with the kettlebell swing and built up some proficiency in that back swing and hip hinge pattern, the next part of our process is to learn the rack position. Now, before you can have a successful rack position, we have to first learn how to properly hold the kettlebell. Kettlebell grip is much different than barbell or dumbbell grip because as opposed to holding the weight straight in your hand, with the kettlebell, you're actually going to hold it at an angle. Our goal with any time we're gripping a kettlebell is to maintain a straight line from the wrist all the way down through the forearm. And to facilitate that and allow the kettlebell to sit in a nice comfortable position where it's not putting a lot of adverse pressure on your wrist and the back of the forearm, we have to hold it in a diagonal position. So that means that the L of your hand is going to be lined up with the L of the kettlebell, and it will sit across the butt of the palm, very similar to how we place the bar when we're bench pressing. This angle here allows us to maintain that proper alignment in through the wrist and forearm, which then allows the kettlebell to sit almost without any effort. When it comes to grip, you can place the fingers over, you can go scissor hand, you can actually hold on and squeeze the bell when you're doing pressing movements, but there will be periods of time because of the nature of the ballistic exercises we do with kettlebells where your grip is going to go from active to just passive. So become familiar with this proper alignment here, because if you don't, you're in for a long and potentially painful process of learning how to utilize the kettlebell. Once we've learned this proper alignment of the wrist and the forearm and the grip, this is our simple rack position. Your knuckles should be facing up, your thumb should be facing back towards the collarbone, the kettlebell should be resting nicely here against the arm, and your elbow should be against your side, almost digging into your hip bone here, or the upper top of your iliac crest. This is the position where we start all of our kettlebell pressing, where we hold for things such as kettlebell front squats, and where we drop to when we're learning the snatch in the half snatch variation. Now that we're familiar with the kettlebell swing and the end position of that kettlebell rack position, we're going to combine the two to perform the kettlebell clean. To learn these best, I suggest you start with the dead stop variation, very similarly to how we did with the kettlebell swings. So to perform those, we're going to follow our sequence of rooting and breathing and bracing, starting by initiating even contact points through the heel, little toe, and big toe of the foot. We're going to inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth to drop the ribs. And we're going to inflate lightly just so we can feel the obliques engage. To get down to the bell, we're going to karate chop the hips back, so we're in a hinge position where we can feel that stretch in through our glutes and our hamstrings. We have the kettlebell about 12 to 18 inches out in front of us at a diagonal angle. As we hike back on the single arm version, our thumb is going to go back towards our legs. As we initiate that swing up, we're going to guide the kettlebell in a vertical path and allow the bell to wrap around the wrist until we end in that rack position. All together. You'll notice at the top, I've ended in the vertical forearm position. I have the L of the bell sitting in the L of my hand. The thumb is facing towards my sternum, and my knuckles are facing towards the sky. To go into the second rep, or the drop portion of the kettlebell clean, what we want to avoid is pushing the bell out away from us. You'll notice as I do that, the tendency is for the kettlebell to swing over the top of my hand and bash me in the forearm. Instead, we want to think about rotating the palm. So you'll notice as I rotate my hand, it naturally wants to start dropping into that down position. So I'm going to perform a full rep so you can see the mechanics of the kettlebell as we come up into the rack position and then we initiate the drop down back to the floor. Starting from the ground, we have our rooting in through the nose, out through the mouth. Small inhale to engage the obliques. Karate chop to sit back into the hips. Tilt the bell to engage the lats. And up into our rack position. And back down. Once we get a feel for the mechanics of that swing and into that rack position and also how to drop the bell without smashing our wrist, it's time to link some reps together. So this is going to be a continuous clean without that dead stop in the middle. Where the kettlebell clean really begins to shine is in the fact that it provides a lot of distinct benefits over and above the standard kettlebell swing. With the kettlebell swing, you're primarily under tension during that backswing portion of the movement, and as you continue through the lift, the bell becomes almost weightless. With the kettlebell clean, and not only do you have the benefits of that hip hinge motion with the swing, but once you come up into the rack position, your body is fully under tension. So we're getting the benefits of full hip extension, of core bracing, but also because it's an asymmetrical load in the single arm variation, I'm having to actively stabilize my spine utilizing my obliques because of the weight only being on one side. There's no true resting point with the kettlebell clean because even here at the top, I'm under tension and under load, and I'm having to use all of the muscles in my body from my glutes to my core to even the muscles in my upper back to support the weight in this rack position. So spend some time getting comfortable with the kettlebell clean, and I look forward to helping you progress this into movements such as the clean and press, the snatch, and the front squat variations.